You don't have to be a jerk to be a boss.
She thought confronting the Mafia boss as a cleaner was the most dangerous thing she'd ever do, but on her wedding day, he storms the altar and claims her as his bride in front of everyone. What he didn't know was that the nobody he claimed would cost him his empire, and the secret she was hiding could destroy them both. Welcome to the channel, lovelies. Please like and subscribe. Noelle Carter stood in the elegant bridal boutique, her fingers trailing over the delicate lace of her wedding gown. The ivory fabric felt like betrayal against her skin. She was about to call out to Noah, her fiancé, when she heard his voice, drifting from behind the dressing room partition. He wasn't alone. What she heard next would shatter everything she thought she knew about love. "Baby, I know this is hard for you." Noah's voice was tender in a way that made Noelle's stomach turn. "But in 1 week, I marry her. And the week after that, I file for divorce. Her family's wealth becomes accessible to me through the prenup loopholes my lawyer found. She has no idea what's coming." The woman's voice that responded was sharp with jealousy. "You better not fall for that rich bitch. I've invested 2 years waiting for you." Noah laughed, and the sound was nothing like the gentle chuckle Noelle had fallen in love with. Fall for her. Please, she's boring, predictable, and so desperate to be loved, she'll believe anything. The moment that ring is on her finger, the clock starts ticking on the biggest payday of my life. Then I'm all yours, sweetheart. Noelle's hand flew to her mouth, suppressing the gasp that threatened to expose her presence. Her heart hammered so violently, she was certain they could hear it through the partition. The wedding gown that had felt like a dream moments ago now felt like a costume for the fool she'd been. But something happened in that moment. Something shifted deep within her core. She wouldn't just walk away. She would make sure no one could ever use her again. What she decided to do next surprised everyone, including herself. 3 days later, Noelle Carter, heiress to the Carter fortune, sister to 3 of the most powerful CEOs in international business, walked into the lobby of Obsidian Holdings wearing a grey cleaning uniform. Her natural curls were tucked under a cap, her designer perfume replaced with the scent of industrial cleaner, and her posture deliberately slouched to appear smaller, invisible. The company was a front for Kim Ha-jin's Korean Mafia operations, though most employees didn't know it. She'd chosen this place specifically because of its reputation for ruthlessness. If she could handle this environment as nobody, she could handle anything. But she wasn't prepared for what working as a cleaner would actually reveal about human nature. The other cleaners, mostly immigrant women, welcomed her with cautious warmth. Rosa, a middle-aged Honduran woman, showed her the ropes. "Keep your head down. Work. Fast. And whatever you do, stay out of Mr. Kim's way. That man, he's ice. No heart." "What do you mean?" Noelle asked, genuinely curious. Rosa's expression darkened with a memory she clearly wished she could forget. "Last month, he fired 3 people because a window had a single streak. He doesn't see us as human. To him, we're just tools. Replaceable tools." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Some say he's connected to dangerous people. Korean Mafia. I don't ask questions. I just clean and go home to my babies." Noelle nodded, filing away this information. She'd researched Kim Ha-jin before taking this position, a 32-year-old CEO who'd built an empire through legitimate business and, allegedly, less legitimate means. He was known for his absolutely brutal business tactics and his complete lack of mercy. But research was different from experience. She was about to discover just how different. On her 4th day, it happened, the incident that would change everything. Noelle was cleaning the executive floor, moving efficiently through the hallway, when she heard a commotion from the main conference room. Raised voices, then one voice rising above the rest. Cold, precise and cutting like a blade through flesh. This is unacceptable. Kim Ha-jin stood at the head of the conference table, his tailored suit immaculate, his expression carved from stone. He was pointing at a small smudge on the window behind him. I pay for perfection. This is not perfection. This is incompetence. The cleaning supervisor, Mr. Chen, was practically trembling. Mr. Kim, sir, I apologize. It won't happen again. Please, you're right. It won't. Ha-jin's voice was quiet now, which somehow made it more terrifying. Because the entire cleaning staff is fired, effective immediately. You have 1 hour to clear out. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Noelle's hands tightened on her cleaning cart. Through the glass wall, she could see Rosa in the next room, unaware her livelihood was about to be ripped away because of a single smudge. Rosa, who supported 3 children on her own. Rosa, who'd shown Noelle nothing but kindness. The injustice of it ignited something in Noelle that her disguise couldn't contain. She made a decision that would force her to reveal more of herself than was safe. Before she could think better of it, Noelle pushed open the conference room door. Every head turned. Kim Ha-jin's dark eyes fixed on her with the intensity of a predator noticing movement in his peripheral vision. The executives around the table looked shocked that a cleaner would dare interrupt. But Noelle had spent her entire life in boardrooms like this, just usually on the other side of the power dynamic. She knew how to command a room. What she was about to do would either get her fired immediately or change everything. With respect, Mr. Kim, firing the entire staff over one mistake is not business strategy. It's tyranny. Her voice was steady, clear, and carried the authority of someone used to being heard. She saw Ha-jin's eyebrow raise a fraction of an inch, the only indication of his surprise. These people work 12-hour shifts for minimum wage, maintaining a building you profit from. They're human beings who make mistakes, just like everyone in this room, just like you. The difference is, when you make a mistake, you don't lose your ability to feed your children. The silence that followed was absolute. Mr. Chen looked like he might faint. One of the executives actually gasped, and Kim Ha-jin. His expression was unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes. Curiosity, anger, interest. Noelle couldn't tell, but she'd gone too far to back down now. Ha-jin took a step toward her, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "What's your name?" "Noelle." She met his gaze without flinching, channeling every ounce of her CEO sister training. "And before you fire me too, know that I'm not afraid of you. I've dealt with men who think power gives them permission to treat people like they're disposable. It doesn't. It gives you responsibility." For a long moment, Ha-jin studied her, really studied her. It was as if he was seeing past the uniform, past the disguise, trying to solve a puzzle he hadn't known existed. The other people in the room seemed to fade away. There was only the cleaner who dared challenge him, and the Mafia boss trying to decide what to do with her. "Everyone out," Ha-jin said quietly, "except you." He pointed at Noelle. The executives scrambled to leave. Mr. Chen shot Noelle a look that was half sympathy, half horror. The look you give someone walking toward their execution. The door clicked shut, and Noelle found herself alone with Kim Ha-jin, the most dangerous man she'd ever deliberately provoked. She'd wanted to see people's true nature when they thought she was nobody. She was about to see his. Ha-jin circled her slowly, like a shark assessing prey. "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. I haven't decided which. Does it matter?" Noelle kept her chin up. "Either way, what I said is true. You can fire me, but that doesn't make you right. No one speaks to me like that." His voice was soft, almost conversational. "No one dares. And yet here you are, a cleaner, lecturing me about responsibility in my own conference room. Why?" Noelle could have backed down, should have backed down. But she was so tired. Tired of Noah's deception, tired of being underestimated, tired of watching powerful people crush those with less. Because someone should, because power without accountability is just bullying with better clothes, and because those women out there deserve someone to stand up for them, even if it costs me this job. Something shifted in Harjin's expression. The ice cracked, just for a moment, and she saw something underneath. Surprise, maybe even respect. He returned to the head of the table and sat down. Then he spoke. "The staff keeps their jobs," he said finally, "including you, especially you." He leaned back, studying her with those penetrating dark eyes. "But I'm watching you now, Noelle. You're either the most principled cleaner I've ever met, or you're something else entirely. I intend to find out which." Noelle felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the way he was looking at her, like she was a mystery he was determined to solve. "I'm just someone who believes in treating people with dignity, Mr. Kim. Nothing more complicated than that. We'll see." He stood, indicating the meeting was over. "Back to work. And Noelle, don't mistake my clemency for weakness. I don't give second chances twice." As Noelle left the conference room, her hands were shaking. She'd saved the cleaning staff, but she'd also put herself directly in Kim Harjin's sights. He would be watching her now, studying her, trying to figure out what didn't add up. She'd have to be more careful. But as she returned to her cart, Rosa rushed over and hugged her fiercely, tears streaming down her face. "You saved us," Rosa whispered. "You crazy brave girl. You saved us." Noelle hugged her back, feeling the weight of her deception more heavily than ever. These women trusted her now. Harjin was intrigued by her, and in 3 days, she still had to face Noah at their wedding. She'd set so many dominoes in motion, and she had no idea which would fall first, but something told her that Kim Harjin would be there when they did. 2 days before the wedding, Noelle found herself in an upscale bar in downtown Manhattan, nursing a whiskey she didn't really want. She'd just come from a dinner with Noah, where she'd smiled and pretended everything was fine while internally screaming. The emotional toll of maintaining the charade was crushing her. She needed somewhere anonymous to breathe, somewhere she could just exist without being Noelle Carter, heiress, or Noelle the cleaner, or Noelle the bride-to-be of a con artist. She just needed to be nothing for a few hours. But the universe had other plans. "Rough day." The voice was familiar, smooth and deep with a slight Korean accent. Noelle looked up to find Kim Harjin sliding onto the bar stool next to her, looking unfairly sophisticated in a black dress shirt and slacks. He'd shed his suit jacket, and she noticed for the first time how the formal wear concealed a powerful frame. His presence here, in her escape space, felt like fate mocking her. "Mr. Kim." She straightened instinctively before forcing herself to relax. She was off the clock. She didn't have to play the deferential cleaner right now. "Are you following me?" Paranoid and bold. Interesting combination. He ordered a drink. Single malt scotch. Neat. "I'm here meeting business associates. They're in the back room. I came out for air and saw you. Seemed rude not to say hello to the woman who called me a tyrant to my face." "I said tyranny, not tyrant. There's a difference." Noelle took a sip of her whiskey, feeling it burn down her throat. "Though I suppose the line is pretty thin." Harjin laughed. Actually laughed. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less like a mafia boss and more like a man. A very attractive man, her traitorous brain supplied. "You don't back down, do you? Even off the clock, even in a bar, you're still ready to challenge me. Should I apologize for having a backbone?" "God, no." His eyes glinted with something that might have been admiration. "The world has enough people who bow and scrape. You're refreshing. Infuriating, but refreshing." He paused, studying her over his glass. "You carry yourself like someone used to being heard. Why are you cleaning floors? Noelle's guard went up instantly. This was dangerous territory. Not everyone has choices, Mr. Kim. Some of us work where we can. Bullshit. His directness caught her off guard. You speak like you've had education. You carry yourself with confidence that comes from privilege, even when you're trying to hide it. And your hands. He reached out and gently lifted her right hand before she could pull away, examining it. These aren't the hands of someone who's been cleaning for years, soft, well-maintained, a professional manicure unless I'm very mistaken. He released her hand but held her gaze. So, I'll ask again, why are you really cleaning floors in my building? Noelle's heart was racing. No one was supposed to see through her disguise. She'd been so careful. But Kim Ha-jin hadn't gotten to where he was by missing details. She made a split-second decision. Give him a truth, just not the whole truth. What she was about to confess would change the dynamic between them forever. I'm hiding, she said finally, the words coming out softer than she intended, from a relationship that turned out to be built on lies. She took a sip of her whiskey, the burn grounding her. I took the cleaning job because I needed to disappear for a while, to clear my head, to remember who I am when I'm not playing the role everyone expects of me. She met his eyes directly. I learned that some people are exactly as cruel as their reputations suggest, and sometimes those same people surprise you. Ha-jin was quiet for a long moment, processing this. The fiancé you mentioned to Rosa, he's the one trying to use you. It wasn't a question. Noelle hadn't realised he'd been listening that carefully to her conversations with the other cleaners. Yes, it's complicated. Complicated how? Maybe it was the whiskey. Maybe it was the exhaustion of carrying her secrets alone. Maybe it was the way Ha-jin was looking at her, not with judgment, but with genuine interest. Whatever the reason, Noelle found herself telling him everything. Well, almost everything. She told him about Noah's betrayal, about the cheating, leaving the part he planned to divorce her after inheriting her wealth. She told him about her decision to go through with the wedding just to publicly humiliate him. She just left out the minor details of being a Carter, of being worth hundreds of millions, of having 3 brothers who ran international corporations. When she finished, Ha-jin was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You're going to marry him just to embarrass him. That's your revenge. Not just embarrass, destroy. Noelle felt the anger rising again, hot and righteous. He thought I was weak, desperate, easy to manipulate. I'm going to stand at that altar and show him exactly how wrong he was. I'm going to play the recording of his cheating ass in front of everyone he's trying to impress. His business partners, his family, his friends. I'm going to watch his life crumble the way he tried to crumble mine, and then I'm walking away with my head high, knowing I'll never be anyone's victim again. That's... Ha-jin paused, choosing his words carefully. That's actually brilliant. Ruthless, dramatic, and brilliant. You'd make a good businesswoman, or a good crime boss. He said it with a slight smile that suggested he was half joking. Maybe only half. I'll take that as a compliment. It was meant as one. He signalled the bartender for another round. So, in 2 days, you blow up your wedding and your ex's life. Then what? You go back to cleaning floors? I don't know. Noelle admitted, I haven't thought past the wedding. I just know I can't go back to who I was before. That naive woman who believed in fairy tales and happily ever after. She's dead. He killed her. Good. Ha-jin's response surprised her. That naive woman would have been eaten alive in the real world. This version of you, the one who stands up to mafia bosses and plans elaborate revenge, she'll survive anything. He raised his glass. To revenge and to rebirth. Noelle clinked her glass against his, feeling something shift between them. A connection. An understanding. 2 people who'd both learned that the world was harder than fairy tales suggested, that sometimes you had to be ruthless to survive. They talked for another hour about everything and nothing, his childhood in Seoul, her love of old movies, the philosophy of power, the price of ambition. They didn't exchange numbers when they finally parted ways, didn't make plans to see each other again. But as Noelle walked to her car, she couldn't shake the feeling that Kim Hye-jin had just become important to her story in a way she didn't yet understand. The wedding day arrived draped in perfect white irony. Noelle stood in the bridal suite, surrounded by flowers and champagne and the suffocating scent of expensive perfume, watching her bridesmaids flutter around her like butterflies, unaware of the coming storm. The dress, the same dress she'd been wearing when she'd overheard Noah's betrayal, felt heavy with symbolism. Her mother had cried when she'd first seen Noelle in it. Her brothers had approved with rare shows of emotion. None of them knew what was actually about to happen. What she was about to do would shock everyone in her life. "You look perfect," her best friend Claire gushed, adjusting Noelle's veil. "Noah is going to lose his mind when he sees you." "Oh, he'll definitely lose something," Noelle murmured, too quietly for Claire to catch. Through the door, she could hear the string quartet starting to play. 300 guests had gathered in the historic Manhattan church, business partners, family friends, society figures who'd come to witness the union of two prominent families. They thought they were here for a wedding. They were actually here for an execution. Noelle took a deep breath and reached for the small recording device hidden in her bouquet. Showtime. The walk down the aisle felt like walking through water. Every step was deliberate, measured, her smile perfect and practiced. She saw Noah waiting at the altar, looking handsome in his tuxedo, his expression appropriately awed. He thought he was minutes away from securing his fortune. The officiant began the ceremony, voice echoing through the church with traditional solemnity. Noelle barely heard him. She was counting down to the moment, to the specific question that would change everything. When it finally came, her heart was surprisingly calm. "Do you, Noelle, take Noah Oliver to be your lawfully wedded husband?" The church fell silent. This was it, the moment everyone was waiting for. Noelle looked at Noah, saw the greed behind his loving gaze, and smiled. Not the sweet smile of a bride, the sharp smile of a predator about to strike. "I don't." Her voice rang clear through the church. The collective gasp was like oxygen being sucked from the room. Noah's face went white, then red. "I absolutely don't. And I think everyone here should know why." "Noelle, what are you—" Noah started forward, but Noelle raised the recording device, her thumb hovering over the play button. The gesture was clear enough. "Come closer, and everyone hears everything." "This," Noelle announced to the stunned crowd, "is a recording of my beloved groom, taken 1 week ago, talking to his mistress. I think you all deserve to hear what true love sounds like." She pressed play, and Noah's voice filled the church, amplified by the sound system he'd insisted on for the ceremony. How perfect that his own vanity would be the tool of his destruction. The recording played every damning word. Noah's confession, his laughter about how desperate and easy to manipulate she was, his promises to his mistress that he'd never actually love his wife. With each sentence, the crowd's shock deepened. Noelle watched Noah's face cycle through denial, anger, and finally, when he realized there was no talking his way out of this, pure panic. His parents looked mortified. His groomsmen were backing away like he had a contagious disease. And his mistress, seated in the back in a guest hat, was trying to sink into her pew and disappear. But Noelle wasn't done yet. "So, you see," Noelle continued when the recording ended, "this isn't a wedding. It's a revelation. Noah Oliver thought he could use me, manipulate me, and discard me. He thought I was weak, desperate, stupid." She pulled off her veil, the gesture symbolic and final. He was wrong. And now everyone knows it. Now everyone knows exactly what kind of man he really is. A liar, a con artist, and a coward who preys on women he thinks are vulnerable. She turned back to Noah, who looked like he might be sick. Your reputation is finished. Your business prospects are finished, and you'll never, ever use another woman the way you tried to use me. I made sure of that. The church erupted, voices overlapping, people standing, phones coming out to record the scandal unfolding. Noah's father was shouting something about lawsuits. Noelle's mother was crying, though whether from relief or shock, Noelle couldn't tell. Her brothers were making their way toward the altar, their faces promising violence if Noah said one more word. It was chaos, beautiful chaos, and Noelle was at the center of it, finally free. She turned to walk back down the aisle, head high, when she saw him. Kim Hee-jin stood at the back of the church, looking devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit. Their eyes met across the chaos, and Noelle saw something in his expression. Decision, determination, and something else she couldn't quite name. He started walking down the aisle toward her, his movements calm and purposeful, while the church churned with confusion around him. People parted for him instinctively, sensing something in his bearing that demanded space. When he reached the altar, he looked at Noelle with those dark, intense eyes, and she realized with a shock what he was about to do. "Mr. Kim," she started, but he was already turning to address the crowd. His voice cut through the noise like a blade through silk. Quiet, but impossible to ignore. "Since we're all already here," Ha-jin said, his slight Korean accent making every word sound more deliberate, "and since the bride looks absolutely stunning." He turned to Noelle, and in front of 300 shocked guests, dropped to one knee. "Noelle, I know this is unconventional. I know we've only known each other a short time, but I've seen your strength, your courage, and your absolutely brutal approach to revenge." A ripple of surprised laughter went through the crowd. "And I think you're remarkable. Marry me, right now. Show this man what he lost. Show yourself what you're worth, and give me the honor of standing beside someone who refuses to be anyone's victim." The church went completely silent. This was beyond scandal now. This was legendary. Noelle stared at Ha-jin, her mind racing. This was insane. Absolutely insane. She barely knew him. He barely knew her. This violated every rule of sensible behavior. And yet, looking into his eyes, she saw something genuine. Not love, not yet, but respect, interest, a kind of recognition. Two people who understood that sometimes the world required bold, dramatic action. And God, the look on Noah's face, was worth everything. Yes. The word came out clear and sure. "Yes, I'll marry you." The church exploded again, but this time with a different energy. Shock, sure, but also excitement. The thrill of witnessing something completely unexpected. Ha-jin stood and pulled Noelle into a kiss that was probably more theatrical than romantic. But it worked. The assembled guests couldn't look away. This was better than any wedding they'd expected to see. This was a story they'd tell for years. When they broke apart, Ha-jin turned to the officiant, who looked like he'd been hit by a truck. "You're already here. We have witnesses, and I have a license." He pulled an actual marriage license from his jacket pocket, and Noelle had to suppress a laugh. He'd planned this. Somehow he'd actually planned this. "So, unless there's a legal reason we can't do this right now, I suggest we get started before the bride changes her mind." The officiant looked at Noelle, clearly giving her an out if she wanted it, but Noelle was done with sensible, done with careful. She'd been careful with Noah, and look where that got her. Hee-jin was offering her something different. Chaos, yes, but also freedom. A marriage that wasn't based on lies or manipulation, but on a strange, impulsive, mutual understanding. She nodded to the officiant. "Let's do this." The ceremony that followed was surreal. Noah was forcibly escorted out by security. Noel's brothers made sure of that, along with his crying mistress. Half the guests left in confusion, but half stayed, caught up in the absolute insanity of what was happening. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, and Hajin kissed her again, Noelle felt something she hadn't felt in months: genuine joy. Not because she loved him, she didn't, not yet, but because she'd just rewritten her entire story on her terms, with her power. And Noah could do absolutely nothing about it except watch his schemes crumble to dust. Outside the church, a black car was waiting. Hajin's, apparently. He'd thought of everything. As they slid into the back seat, finally alone, Noelle started laughing. She couldn't help it. The absurdity, the drama, the sheer audacity of what they'd just done hit her all at once. "We're insane," she gasped between laughs. "We just got married. We barely know each other. That was completely insane." Hajin was smiling too, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Insane? Maybe. But tell me you regret it. Noelle thought about Noah's face, about the power she'd felt standing at that altar, making her own choice, refusing to be a victim, about the strange connection she felt to this man beside her, this dangerous, enigmatic man who'd seen her strength and respected it instead of trying to crush it. "I don't," she admitted. "I really don't. Is that crazy?" "Probably." Hajin pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then looked back at her. "I just texted my assistant to prepare the west wing of my estate for you. We should talk about all of this, what it means, what we're actually doing." "Yeah." Noelle agreed, her laughter fading into something more serious. "We probably should." But as the car pulled away from the church, away from the wreckage of her old life and toward whatever insane new chapter was beginning, she couldn't quite bring herself to feel worried. Nervous, yes. Uncertain, absolutely. But worried? No. Somehow, impossibly, this felt right. What that meant, she had no idea. But she was about to find out. The drive to Hajin's estate took them out of Manhattan and into the countryside, the landscape transitioning from urban chaos to rolling hills. Noelle watched the scenery change, hyper-aware of the man beside her, the ring now on her finger, the absolute insanity of her new reality. She'd married Kim Ha-jin, the Korean Mafia boss, a man she'd met while disguised as a cleaner, a man who'd proposed to her at her failed wedding to another man. This morning she'd woken up as Noelle Carter, reluctant bride-to-be. Now she was... what? Noelle Kim. She hadn't even thought about the name change yet. As the car stopped in front of the main entrance, Noelle felt a flutter of genuine nervousness. This was real. She was really doing this. But before the anxiety could take hold, Hajin was opening her door, offering his hand, his expression surprisingly gentle. "Welcome home, Mrs. Kim," he said with a slight smile. "Though I suppose we should discuss whether you actually want to use that name." Inside, the estate was even more impressive, but it felt empty somehow, like a showpiece rather than a home. Hajin led her to a sitting room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a Zen garden, gestured for her to sit, and poured them both a drink without asking if she wanted one. She took it gratefully. They sat in silence for a moment, and Noelle realised this was the first time they'd been truly alone without the buffer of crowds or chaos. Now they had to actually deal with what they'd done. "So," Hajin began, swirling the whiskey in his glass, "I married a woman whose real name I don't even know." Noelle's head snapped up. "What?" "You heard me." He leaned back, looking entirely too comfortable. "I know your name is Noelle. I know you were working as a cleaner in my building as some kind of revenge plot, but I don't actually know who you are. Not really." He met her eyes directly. "So, here's what I propose. We establish some ground rules. Figure out what this marriage actually is. We don't need to spill our entire life stories tonight, but we should at least know what we're agreeing to." Noelle considered this. He was right, of course. The whole situation was built on partial truths and impulsive decisions. But revealing herself completely meant giving him power over her, and she'd just escaped one man who'd tried to use that power to destroy her. Could she trust Hajin? Did she have a choice? That's fair, Noelle said slowly. We did just get married on impulse. We should probably figure out what that actually means. She set down her glass, meeting his gaze. What did you have in mind? I propose we treat this as a partnership. A business arrangement, if you will, with the possibility of becoming something more organic over time. He turned to face her. We're married legally. That's done. We live together, but separately if you prefer. I have a west wing that's essentially a self-contained apartment. Complete privacy. We present as a married couple to the outside world because that benefits both of us. You get protection and a clean break from your ex. I get... He paused, and something flickered across his face. Let's just say having a wife helps with certain business expectations. Business expectations, Noelle repeated, hearing what he wasn't saying. His world, the criminal underworld he'd hinted at, probably valued stability, family ties. A wife made him look settled, trustworthy, less of a risk. She could work with that. And what do you expect from me in this arrangement? Discretion, respect, and honesty about what this is and isn't. He moved back to his chair, sitting forward with his elbows on his knees. I won't lie to you, Noelle. I won't pretend this is a love match or some fairy tale. But I also won't disrespect you or treat you as less than an equal partner in whatever this becomes. If you need space, you tell me. If I'm overstepping, you tell me. We communicate like adults instead of playing games. It was more than Noah had ever offered her. Honesty, at least. Noelle felt some of the tension in her shoulders ease. Okay, I can agree to that. But I have conditions of my own. I would expect nothing less from the woman who lectured me about tyranny in my own conference room. There was amusement in his voice now, and it softened something in his face. What are your terms? First, I want to continue working as a cleaner at your company. She held up a hand when his eyebrows rose. I know it sounds strange, but I started something there. I'm not done yet. I want to see it through. Hajin studied her for a long moment, and she could practically see him trying to puzzle her out. Who was she, really? What kind of woman married a mafia boss on impulse and then insisted on continuing to scrub floors? You realize people will talk, he said finally. Questions will be asked about why my wife is working as a cleaner in my own building. Then, we don't tell anyone at the company that we're married. Not yet. Noelle leaned forward, warming to her plan. I want to finish what I started there. See how people treat me when they still think I'm nobody. You can watch if you want. You said you were intrigued by me. Now you can see exactly who I am when I think no one important is looking. Something sparked in Hajin's eyes. Interest, challenge, maybe even admiration. You want to stay as a cleaner, while being my wife. He laughed, shaking his head. You're either brilliant or completely insane. I haven't decided which. Can't I be both? Apparently. He stood, moving to a sidebar where he poured himself another drink. Fine. You continue as a cleaner. Our marriage stays private from the company staff, but I have one non-negotiable condition of my own. Noelle tensed slightly. Here it came. The catch, the demand, the thing that would reveal what he really wanted from her. What's that? Security. His tone left no room for argument. You're my wife now, Noelle. That means you're connected to me, to my world, to my enemies. I can't have you vulnerable. You'll have a protection detail, discreet, professional, but constant. They won't interfere with your work or your privacy, but they'll be there. This is non-negotiable. It made sense, even if the idea of being followed made her uncomfortable. She'd seen enough movies to know that being married to someone in organised crime came with risks. Will they follow me everywhere? Everywhere that matters. They'll keep their distance at work since you'll be in my building anyway, which has its own security, but coming and going, running errands, anywhere outside controlled environments, yes, they'll be there. He met her eyes, and his expression was serious in a way she hadn't seen before. I know it feels invasive, but I've made enemies who wouldn't hesitate to use you against me. I won't let that happen. There was something protective in his voice that surprised her. This wasn't just about business or convenience. He actually meant it. He would protect her whether she wanted it or not. It should have felt controlling, but somehow it didn't. Maybe because he was being upfront about it instead of sneaking around behind her back. Okay, she agreed. I can live with security as long as they're actually discreet. They're the best. You won't even notice them unless something goes wrong. Ha-Jin seemed to relax slightly, as if he'd expected more of a fight. Any other conditions? Noelle thought for a moment. There was so much they hadn't discussed. Finances, fidelity, what happened if one of them wanted out. But those conversations could wait. Right now, she just needed the basics. Just one more. Honesty. If this arrangement stops working for you, you tell me. If you meet someone else, if your business associates have a problem with me, if anything changes, you tell me directly. No games, no lies. I just escaped a relationship built on deception. I won't live in another one. Agreed. Ha-Jin extended his hand across the space between them. Honesty, discretion, mutual respect, and security. Those are our terms. We'll figure out the rest as we go. Noelle shook his hand, feeling the firmness of his grip, the warmth of his skin against hers. It was such a simple gesture, so businesslike, and yet it felt more intimate than anything she'd shared with Noah in 2 years of dating, maybe because this was real. No pretense, no performance, just two people making a deal and meaning it. So, what happens now? She asked. Now I show you to your quarters, you get settled, and we both process the insanity of what we did today. Ha-Jin moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at her. For what it's worth, Noelle, I don't regret it. The proposal, the marriage, any of it. You're the most interesting thing that's happened to me in years. I'm curious to see where this goes. Me too, Noelle admitted, and she meant it. This was terrifying and exhilarating and completely unpredictable, but it was hers, her choice, her risk, her new beginning. As she followed Ha-Jin through the sprawling estate, she felt lighter than she had in months. Yes, she'd just married a stranger. Yes, he was involved in criminal activities. Yes, her family was probably losing their minds, but she was free. Free from Noah's manipulation, free from being a victim, free to write her own story however she wanted. And if that story included a mafia boss husband and a secret identity as a cleaner, well, stranger things had probably happened. Probably. Maybe. This is yours, Ha-Jin said from the doorway, respecting the threshold. Completely private. I won't enter without your permission. There's a lock if you want to use it, though I should mention my security chief has a master key for emergencies only. It's perfect, Noelle said, honestly. Thank you. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. Your first day back at work as a cleaner who's secretly married to the boss. I'm almost looking forward to seeing how you pull that off. You're not going to make it easier on me, are you? Where would be the fun in that? He was smiling now. That rare expression that transformed his usually cold face. Good night, wife. Good night, husband. The words felt strange on her tongue, but not unpleasant. Noelle closed the door and heard his footsteps retreating down the hallway. Alone finally, She let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding and looked around her new space, her new life. Everything had changed in a single day. This morning she'd been preparing to marry Noah. Tonight she was married to Kim Ha-jin. Tomorrow she'd go back to scrubbing floors in his building while hiding their connection. It was absolutely insane, but what choice did she have now except to see it through? Noelle was done waiting for other people to write her story. From now on, she held the pen. And the next chapter was going to be unforgettable. She'd make sure of it. The morning alarm felt like violence against Noelle's consciousness. She'd barely slept, her mind churning through the impossibility of her new reality. Today she would return to Ha-jin's company as a cleaner, except now she was secretly his wife. The absurdity of it should have felt overwhelming, but as she pulled on her grey uniform, she felt strangely calm. This was her choice, her experiment, her life, and she was going to see it through, no matter how complicated it became. The estate was quiet as she made her way to the kitchen, following the scent of coffee. She found Ha-jin already there, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, reading something on his tablet. He looked up when she entered, and for a moment they just stared at each other. Husband and wife, stranger and stranger, bound by impulse and legal documents. Coffee, he offered, already pouring her a cup. He remembered she took it black from their conversation at the bar. The small detail felt significant somehow. Thank you. Noelle accepted the mug, hyper-aware of how domestic this felt. Do you always wake up this early? Habit? The criminal underworld keeps inconvenient hours. He said it so casually, like other people might. Mention checking emails. One of my drivers will take you to work. He's been briefed on the situation. He knows you're my wife, but he'll treat you like any other employee at the office. You've thought of everything. I try to. Ha-jin set down his tablet, giving her his full attention. Are you sure about this? Going back to cleaning, we could just announce our marriage, let you work in a position that actually matches your capabilities. And what capabilities are those? Noelle asked carefully. He was fishing, trying to figure her out. She could see the curiosity burning in his dark eyes. I don't know yet, but I will. It wasn't a threat, just a statement of fact. You're not what you seem, Noelle. I knew that from the moment you confronted me in that conference room. The question is, what are you hiding and why? Noelle sipped her coffee, buying time. She couldn't tell him. Not yet. Not until she was absolutely certain she could trust him. Maybe I just want to prove I can. Survive in the real world without special treatment. Maybe. But he didn't sound convinced. Just be careful. Yuna's going to be there today. She's complicated. Complicated how? Ha-jin's expression darkened slightly. She's my childhood friend. Our families were close before mine fell apart. My grandmother always hoped we'd marry. Yuna still believes that's going to happen eventually, despite me telling her otherwise, repeatedly. He met Noelle's eyes. She doesn't know about our marriage. I'd prefer to keep it that way for now. It'll be easier for your undercover work. But she can be territorial. Just stay out of her way if you can. The warning felt loaded with things he wasn't saying, but before Noelle could ask more, her phone buzzed. A text from Rosa. Are you coming in today? I saved you some breakfast. The simple kindness made Noelle smile. This was why she was doing this, for connections with people like Rosa who saw her as a person rather than a strategic alliance. What she didn't know was that staying invisible would become increasingly impossible, and the woman waiting for her at the office would make sure of that. The cosmetics company felt different when Noelle walked in, like she was seeing it through new eyes. She was married to the man who owned this building, who controlled every aspect of what happened here. But nobody knew. To them, she was still just Noelle, the brave cleaner who'd stood up to the boss and somehow kept her job. Rosa greeted her with a tight hug and a container of homemade tamales. The other cleaners welcomed her back warmly. It felt genuine, pure. She'd needed this more than she'd realized, but her peace lasted exactly 40 minutes. That's when Una arrived. Noelle was cleaning the executive floor when she heard the click of expensive heels on marble. She looked up to see a stunning Korean woman in a designer suit, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. Everything about her screamed wealth, education, and entitlement. She walked past Noelle without a glance, as if cleaners were simply part of the furniture. But then she stopped, turned, and really looked at Noelle. Something flickered in her eyes. Assessment, calculation, the look a predator gives potential competition. "You're new," Una said, her voice crisp with a slight accent that spoke of expensive international schools. "What's your name?" "Noelle." She kept her tone neutral, respectful, playing her role. "Noelle." Una repeated it like she was testing the weight of the word. "How long have you been working here?" "Just over a week, Ma'am." "Interesting." Una's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm Una Park, Director of Product Development. Harvard Business School, class of 2019, if you're wondering about my qualifications." She said it like it was a challenge, like she needed to establish dominance, even over a cleaner. "Make sure my office is spotless. I have very high standards. My grandmother always said, cleanliness reflects character. If I find even a speck of dust, you'll hear about it. Understood?" "Of course, Ms. Park." Noelle kept her expression blank, but internally she was cataloguing everything. The subtle desperation beneath the arrogance, the way Una kept glancing toward Hajin's office like a moon orbiting a planet. This woman was in love with Hajin, and she saw every other woman as a threat. What Noelle didn't realize was that she'd just become Una's primary target, and Una played to win. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in subtle workplace torture. Una found reasons to walk past Noelle constantly, each time with a new criticism. The floors weren't clean enough. The windows had streaks. The trash bins weren't positioned correctly. She'd accidentally knock over plants just to create more work. She'd schedule important meetings in spaces Noelle had just cleaned, then complain about disruption. Other employees noticed and began treating Noelle with less respect. Following Una's lead, even the supervisor, Mr. Chen, started writing her up for imaginary infractions. "I don't understand," Rosa whispered one day during lunch. "You're the best cleaner we have. Why is Ms. Park targeting you?" Noelle had her suspicions. She'd caught Una watching her whenever Hajin was nearby, had seen the way Una's expression darkened when Hajin stopped to exchange brief, professional words with Noelle about building maintenance. Una saw her as competition, even though she was supposedly just a cleaner. It was petty, calculated, and designed to break her spirit. What Una didn't understand was that Noelle had been raised by 3 ruthless CEO brothers. This was child's play compared to their training. But what happened next would shock everyone. The company-wide crisis hit on a Tuesday morning. Hajin called an emergency meeting. Their biggest client, a luxury department store chain, was threatening to pull their entire contract. They'd received complaints about skin reactions to the company's latest foundation line. If they lost this client, the company would take a massive financial hit. Everyone scrambled for solutions, but nothing was working. The chemistry was sound, the ingredients were safe. What was causing the reactions? Noelle was cleaning outside the conference room when she overheard the problem, and suddenly she knew exactly what was wrong. She'd seen this issue before, studied it extensively in her family's laboratories. It wasn't the foundation itself. It was an interaction between the foundation and a popular primer that the department store was promoting together. Combined, they created a chemical reaction that irritated sensitive skin. The solution was simple: reformulate the foundation to be compatible or create their own primer. But she couldn't just walk in there and announce it, could she? She made a decision that would change everything. She knocked on the conference room door. The conversation stopped. Ha-Jin looked up, surprised to see her standing there in her cleaning uniform, interrupting an executive meeting. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Noelle said, her voice steady despite every eye on her. "But I couldn't help overhearing your problem, and I think I know what's causing the skin reactions." Yuna laughed. Actually laughed. "You? A cleaner? You think you understand cosmetic chemistry better than our entire R&D department?" She looked around the table, inviting others to join her mockery. "This is absurd. Security should escort her out." But Ha-Jin held up his hand. "Let her speak." His eyes were locked on Noelle, intense and curious. "What's your theory?" Noelle stepped into the room, her heart pounding. This was it, the moment she'd either prove herself or humiliate herself completely. It's not the foundation, it's the interaction between your foundation and the Luminous Glow primer that the department store is bundling with it. Your foundation contains dimethicone, which is standard. But when combined with the silica microspheres in that specific primer, it creates a compound that breaks down on certain skin types, especially those with higher pH levels. The breakdown releases free radicals that cause the irritation. She moved to the whiteboard, began sketching the molecular structure from memory. If you reformulate with cyclomethicone instead, or add a pH buffer like sodium citrate, you'll eliminate the reaction entirely. The room was dead silent. The head of R&D was staring at her like she'd just spoken in tongues. Yuna's face had gone white with rage, and Ha-Jin was leaning back in his chair, a small smile playing at his lips. He knew, in that moment, he knew she was far more than she'd claimed to be. "That's actually brilliant," the R&D director said slowly, checking the molecular structure on her tablet. "She's right. Where did you learn this?" "I read a lot," Noelle said simply. "Chemistry textbooks, cosmetic journals. I've always been interested in how things work." It was weak, and everyone knew it. But before anyone could press further, Ha-Jin stood. "Test her theory immediately," he ordered. "If it works, implement the reformulation within the week. Good work, Noelle. Very observant." He dismissed the meeting, but as people filed out, he caught her eye. The look said clearly, "We're going to talk about this soon." But for now, he was protecting her cover. She just didn't know why. The reformulation worked perfectly. Within 3 days, the client was satisfied, the contract was saved, and the company had dodged a multi-million-dollar disaster. And everyone knew it was because of Noelle, the cleaner who somehow knew advanced cosmetic chemistry. The whispers started immediately. Who was she? Where did she come from? How did a cleaner know things that their Harvard-educated executives didn't? Then Ha-Jin made an announcement that shocked everyone. The company would be holding a product development competition. Every employee, regardless of position, could submit a revolutionary cosmetics product. The winner would receive a major promotion and lead the company's next product line. It was designed to generate innovation and identify hidden talent. But Noelle suspected it was also designed specifically for her. Ha-Jin's way of forcing her to reveal more of her capabilities. She was right. What she didn't realize was that this competition would bring everything to a head. Noelle submitted her proposal through the anonymous company system, a sustainable hypoallergenic foundation that adapted to different skin tones and types using thermochromic technology combined with color-correcting microspheres. It was revolutionary because it was based on cutting-edge research she'd been absorbing since age 3, growing up in the Carter family's cosmetics empire. She knew this industry inside and out, the chemistry, the marketing, the consumer psychology, the manufacturing processes. She just had to be careful not to reveal how she knew it. The proposal was brilliant, innovative, and would put the company years ahead of its competitors. What she didn't anticipate was Yuna's reaction. When the finalists were announced, the office erupted. Anonymous entry number 47 had made the top 3, alongside Yuna's luxury anti-aging serum and the research department's innovative moisturizer. The presentations would be in 2 days. Everyone would have to reveal themselves. Noelle felt Heijin's eyes on her during the announcement, saw the slight knowing smile. He suspected, but he didn't know for certain. Not yet. Yuna cornered Noelle in the supply closet that afternoon. "I know it's you," she hissed, her polished facade cracking. "I don't know how a cleaner learned what you know, but your entry's Civic 47, and I'm not going to let you humiliate me in front of Jin. "I don't know what you're talking about," Noelle said calmly, even as her heart raced. "Don't play stupid. You saved the client contract. You clearly know cosmetics. And now you're trying to steal my spotlight, maybe even steal Jin." Yuna stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "His grandmother chose me for him. We're meant to be together. Whatever game you're playing, whatever you're really doing here, it ends now. Withdraw from the competition, or I'll make your life hell. I have connections you can't imagine. I can destroy you." "No," Noelle said simply. "I'm not withdrawing. And you can't destroy me. You can try, but you'll fail. Because unlike you, I don't need to tear others down to prove my worth." She moved toward the door, then paused. "And Heijin isn't a prize to be won, Yuna. He's a person. Maybe if you saw him that way instead of as your destiny, you'd understand why he's never chosen you." The look on Yuna's face promised war, but Noelle walked away, her head high. She'd made an enemy, a powerful, connected, dangerous enemy, but she wouldn't back down. Not now, not ever. What she didn't know was that Yuna's connections ran deeper and darker than she could imagine, and the woman was already planning her revenge. The presentation day arrived with the weight of destiny. The conference room was packed. Every executive, every department head, the entire R&D team, and Jin himself sitting at the head of the table like a king presiding over his court. Yuna presented first, polished and professional, her Harvard education evident in every slide, every practice gesture. The anti-aging serum was genuinely innovative, incorporating peptide technology with botanical extracts. She spoke with confidence and authority, and the room responded with impressed nods and appreciative murmurs. When she finished, the applause was substantial. She smiled triumphantly, her eyes flickering to Noelle with unmistakable challenge. The research department went second, a solid, safe innovation that would appeal to the eco-conscious market. More applause, more nods. Safe, predictable, good, but not great. Then it was Noelle's turn. She walked to the front in her cleaning uniform, and the room erupted in whispers. Rosa, watching from the doorway where the support staff had gathered, gasped audibly. The executives looked confused, some even offended that a cleaner would dare compete at this level. Yuna's expression transformed from triumph to pure, undiluted rage, and Jin leaned forward, his entire focus on her, his expression unreadable but intense. This was the moment. No more hiding, no more pretending, just her knowledge, her skills, her worth. What she was about to do would prove she was far more than anyone suspected. "My name is Noelle," she began, her voice steady and clear, carrying the authority of someone who'd spent her entire life in boardrooms. "I know I'm just a cleaner, but I've been studying cosmetics my entire life, and I believe I've developed something truly revolutionary." She pulled up her first slide, molecular diagrams that would make a chemistry PhD nod in respect. Current foundation technology requires consumers to find their exact shade match, which can be frustrating and often leads to waste, when shades don't quite work. My innovation uses thermochromic pigments combined with color-correcting microspheres that respond to skin temperature and pH levels, adapting in real time to match the wearer's exact tone. She watched their faces shift from skepticism to interest. She explained the science with precision, the encapsulation technology that protected the reactive ingredients, the biodegradable microspheres that made it environmentally sustainable, the production costs that made it commercially viable despite its advanced chemistry. She presented market research showing the enormous demand for inclusive, adaptive cosmetics. She outlined a marketing strategy that would position the company as an industry leader in personalized beauty technology. But she didn't stop there. She discussed the patent opportunities, the potential for expanding the technology to other products, the competitive advantages they'd gain. She spoke like someone who understood not just the chemistry, but the business, the market, the entire ecosystem of the cosmetics industry. Because she did. She'd been absorbing this knowledge since before she could read, sitting in her father's office, watching her brothers build an empire. This was her birthright, her expertise, her world. She was just finally allowing herself to show it. When she finished, the silence was absolute. Then one of the executives, the CFO, a woman who'd been in the industry for 30 years, started clapping slowly. Others joined. Within seconds, the entire room was applauding, and it wasn't polite applause anymore. It was genuine, impressed, the kind of response reserved for presentations that truly changed the game. Everyone except Yuna, whose expression had gone from rage to something darker, murderous, calculating, but Noel only had eyes for Harjin. He was staring at her like he was seeing her for the first time, puzzle pieces clicking together in his brilliant, dangerous mind. The way she spoke, the depth of her knowledge, the confidence that came from years of experience, not just study. She'd just revealed far more than she'd intended, and he knew it. The question was, what would he do with that knowledge? The verdict came swiftly. The panel didn't even need to deliberate. Noel won unanimously. She was promoted to Director of Product Innovation, effective immediately, with a salary that made Rosa gasp when she overheard. She'd be overseeing the development and launch of her adaptive foundation line, managing a team of researchers and chemists, reporting directly to Harjin. The cleaning staff cheered. Rosa cried happy tears and pulled Noel into a fierce hug. The executives looked impressed, intrigued, some even eager to work with her, but Yuna looked destroyed. Her face had gone pale, her hands trembling slightly as she gathered her presentation materials. She'd been beaten by a cleaner, humiliated in front of Harjin and the entire company, and from the cold calculation in her eyes, Noel knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. What Noel didn't realize was that Yuna's father had secrets, dark secrets involving Harjin's family that would soon come crashing into the light. That night, Harjin was waiting for her in the estate's library. He'd clearly been there for hours, surrounded by laptops and documents, a glass of whiskey forgotten at his elbow. The room felt charged with unspoken questions. When Noel entered, still processing the surreal day, he looked up with an expression that was equal parts impressed and frustrated and intensely curious. "Sit," he said quietly, gesturing to the chair across from him. "We need to talk. And this time, Noel, I want the truth. All of it." Noel sat, her heart pounding. This was the conversation she'd been avoiding. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." Harjin stood, began pacing. "How does a cleaner know advanced cosmetic chemistry that rivals my top executives? How do you understand market strategy, patent law, production logistics? Yuna has a Harvard MBA and years of experience in her family's cosmetics business. You dismantled her in front of the entire company without breaking a sweat." He stopped, facing her directly. "I've been investigating you. I have resources that can find anyone, any background, any secret. I can uncover identities that governments try to hide. But you're a ghost. It's like you didn't exist before you walked into my building as a cleaner. That's not normal. That takes resources, planning, and connections at the highest levels. He moved closer, and she could see the frustration in his eyes, but also something else. Hurt, maybe. That she hadn't trusted him enough to tell him. So I'm asking you plainly, Noelle, not as your boss, as your husband. Who are you really? Noelle met his gaze, weighing her options. She could keep lying, keep hiding behind the walls she'd built. But they'd made a deal. Honesty. And some part of her desperately wanted him to know. Wanted someone to see the real her and not run away. Wanted him to understand why she'd hidden, why she'd needed to prove herself. But before she could form the words, his phone buzzed insistently. He glanced at it, and his expression changed, hardened into something cold and deadly that reminded her exactly what he was capable of. We'll continue this later, he said, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. Something's come up. Stay in the estate tonight. Don't go anywhere. Don't leave these grounds. Promise me. What's wrong? Hajin, talk to me. Promise me, Noelle. There was something in his voice, fear beneath the command. Please, just trust me on this. I promise, she said, standing. But you have to tell me what's happening. Noah, Hajin said through gritted teeth. And his ex. They've made contact with some very dangerous people. People I've had conflicts with in the past. My sources say they're planning something, but I don't know what yet. I need to handle this before it reaches you, so please, just stay here where my security can protect you. He left before she could argue, and Noelle was alone with the weight of unspoken truths and the growing certainty that her carefully constructed walls were crumbling faster than she could rebuild them. She wanted to tell him everything, wanted to trust him with her real identity, but fear held her back. Fear of being used again, fear of losing the connection they'd built, fear of becoming just another strategic asset in his world. What she didn't know was that she was running out of time. Because Noah and his ex weren't just planning something, they were already executing it, and the consequences would force every secret into the light. The following weeks settled into a new rhythm. Noelle's promotion meant she no longer cleaned floors. Instead, she spent her days in a corner office, leading a team of chemists and researchers, developing the adaptive foundation line. The work was exhilarating, but challenging, everything she'd been trained for, but never allowed to fully embrace under her family name. Here, she'd earned this position through merit alone, but the pressure was immense. Everyone was watching her, questioning how a former cleaner could possibly handle this level of responsibility. She proved them wrong day after day. Her innovations were brilliant, her management style effective, her business instincts sharp. Slowly, the skepticism faded. Her team began to respect her, then admire her. The executives stopped questioning Hajin's decision to promote her. Even Rosa, now working as her administrative assistant at Noelle's request, watched her with proud, wondering eyes. But Yuna watched her with hatred. It started with small sabotages, reports going missing, lab samples contaminated, emails mysteriously not reaching Noelle's inbox. Then it escalated. Yuna started spreading rumours that Noelle had slept her way into the promotion, that she'd seduced Hajin, that she was a con artist with a fake background. The whispers followed Noelle through the hallways, made her team question her authority, poisoned the professional respect she'd worked so hard to build. Hajin shut down what he could, made it clear that anyone spreading rumours would be fired, but he couldn't be everywhere. And Yuna was clever, working through proxies, never directly attacking where it could be traced back to her. The harassment took its toll. Noelle found herself working later hours, trying to prove herself over and over, exhausted and frustrated, but she wouldn't quit. wouldn't give Yuna the satisfaction. What she didn't realize was that Yuna's hatred had roots that went far deeper than professional jealousy. At home, things with Hajin had shifted into something complicated and beautiful and terrifying. They'd started having dinner together every night, talking about their days, debating business strategies, sharing pieces of themselves. He still pressed her about her background, but gently now, like he was willing to wait for her to trust him enough to tell him, and Noelle found herself wanting to tell him, wanting to share everything. They'd started spending nights together too, not intimately, not yet, but falling asleep in the same bed, holding each other like anchors in a storm. Hajin would trace patterns on her skin and tell her stories about growing up in Seoul, about his mother, about the moment he'd realized he'd have to choose between poverty and the criminal underworld. Noelle would share carefully edited versions of her childhood, talking about learning cosmetics chemistry, about feeling like she had to constantly prove her worth, about the loneliness of never knowing if people loved her or her money. They were falling deeper. Both of them knew it. Both of them were terrified of it. Because love meant vulnerability, and in their respective worlds, vulnerability got you destroyed. But they couldn't seem to stop. What neither of them knew was that their growing connection was about to be tested in ways they couldn't imagine. Then Marcus, Noelle's childhood friend, arrived, and everything became infinitely more complicated. Noelle was in her office reviewing product samples when Rosa knocked. "There's someone here to see you. He says he's an old friend. Marcus Chen." Marcus walked in looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Tall, handsome, impeccably dressed in a suit that screamed money and power. His smile was warm and familiar, and when he saw Noelle, his whole face lit up with genuine affection and something deeper. Something that made Noelle's stomach sink. "Noelle Carter," he said, and she froze. He'd used her full name, out loud, in her office, where anyone could hear. "I heard through the business grapevine that you were working here, but I didn't believe it until I confirmed it myself. What are you doing at a competitor's company? Does your family know?" "Marcus." She stood quickly, moved to close the door, her mind racing. "Keep your voice down, please. No one here knows who I am." "What? Why?" He looked genuinely confused, concerned. "You're Noelle Carter. Your family owns half the cosmetics industry. Your brothers are 3 of the most powerful CEOs in the world. Why are you pretending to be—" He noticed her current office, the director nameplate. "Wait, you were actually working as a cleaner. Noelle, what the hell is going on?" Before she could answer, her office door opened without a knock. Hajin stood there, his expression carefully neutral, but his eyes were sharp as blades taking in Marcus. The closed door, the intimate way they were standing close together, the obvious familiarity between them. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Noelle," Hajin said quietly, "I need to speak with you about the quarterly projections, but I see you're busy." "No," Noelle said quickly, desperately. "This is Marcus Chen, an old friend from before. Marcus, this is Kim Hae-jin, the CEO. I know who he is." Marcus extended his hand, but there was something territorial in his posture, something that made Noelle's heart sink further. "I'm the new VP of Product Development at Lux Global. We'll be competing directly, Mr. Kim. Though, I have to say, I'm surprised to find Noelle here. We grew up together. Our families have been close for generations." The silence that followed was suffocating. Hajin shook Marcus's hand, but Noelle could see the calculation in his eyes, the way he was assessing this new variable, categorizing the threat level. How interesting. I wasn't aware Noelle had such established connections in the industry. She's been remarkably modest about her background. "That's Noelle for you, always trying to prove herself." Marcus smiled, but there was an edge to it now. "Though, I have to ask, Mr. Kim, is promoting a cleaner to director in a matter of weeks standard practice at your company? I'm sure there are qualified candidates who actually have degrees and experience. It was a challenge, thinly veiled as professional curiosity, and Harjin's expression went cold in a way that made Noelle's breath catch. Noelle earned her position through exceptional merit and expertise that surpassed my Harvard-educated executives. Her knowledge of cosmetic chemistry and market strategy is unparalleled, unless you're suggesting there's something inappropriate about recognizing genuine talent, regardless of previous job title. Of course not, Marcus said smoothly. I'm just concerned for my old friend. I'd hate to see her taken advantage of in any way. The tension was thick enough to cut. Noelle stepped between them, literally placing herself as a barrier. Marcus, perhaps we could catch up later. I do need to discuss these projections with Mr. Kim. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, and she saw hurt flash across his face. He'd come here expecting... what? A reunion? A chance to reconnect? He'd obviously heard about her broken engagement with Noah. Of course, he said finally. I'm in town for a few weeks overseeing the Lux Global merger with a local competitor. We should have dinner, catch up properly. I'll call you. After Marcus left, the silence in Noelle's office was deafening. Harjin stood by the window, his back to her, tension radiating from every line of his body. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. An old friend from before, with a family close to yours. Who knows your real background well enough to almost expose you in your own office? Harjin, how many more secrets, Noelle? He turned, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Hurt. Actual, genuine hurt beneath the anger. How many more pieces of your past are going to walk through that door? How long are you going to keep hiding from me? I'm not hiding from you, she said, but even she could hear how weak it sounded. I'm not ready. I need more time. Time. He laughed, but there was no humour in it. We're married, Noelle. We live together. We share a bed. We're building something real between us, or at least I thought we were. But you still don't trust me enough to tell me who you really are. Meanwhile, this Marcus walks in and knows everything. Knows your family, your background, your real name. That's not fair, isn't it? Harjin moved closer, and she could see the war of emotions on his face. I've told you everything about me, hey? My past, my crimes, my connections to organised crime. I've made myself completely vulnerable to you, and you can't even tell me your last name, can't tell me about your family, can't trust me with the basic facts of who you are. Noelle felt tears prick her eyes. I can't just hand over that power again. Not until I'm sure. Not until I know for certain that I what? His voice dropped to something raw and painful. That I love you. I do. I've been falling in love with you since you stood in that conference room and called me out for tyranny. That I won't use you. I won't. I've had plenty of opportunities to investigate you thoroughly, to force the truth out of you, to manipulate you into revealing yourself. But I didn't, because I wanted you to choose to trust me, because I thought what we were building was worth waiting for. He stepped back, and the distance felt like miles. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe you'll never trust me. Maybe this marriage was a mistake after all. Don't say that, Noelle whispered, her heart breaking. Please don't say that. Then tell me the truth, right now. Who are you, Noelle? Who am I really married to? She opened her mouth, the confession right there, ready to spill out. But fear choked the words. Fear of being used, fear of losing what they had, fear of becoming just another asset in his world instead of a partner. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Finally, Harjin shook his head. That's what I thought, he said quietly. And then he left, closing the door behind him with a soft click that sounded like finality. Noelle sank into her chair, tears streaming down her face, and wondered if she'd just destroyed the best thing that had ever happened to her because she couldn't let go of her fear. What she didn't know was that events were already in motion that would force the truth out, whether she was ready or not. Marcus called that evening and Noelle almost didn't answer, but some combination of heartbreak over Hajin and nostalgia for simpler times made her pick up. They agreed to meet for dinner at an upscale restaurant in Manhattan. Noelle told herself it was innocent, just dinner with an old friend. But when she arrived and saw Marcus waiting, looking at her with unmistakable longing, she knew she'd made a mistake. "You look beautiful," Marcus said, standing to pull out her chair. "Though you always did, even when we were kids, and you'd show up to family dinners with chemistry stains on your clothes from spending all day in your father's lab." Noelle smiled despite herself. "I was obsessed. Still am, I guess. This industry is in my blood. Your father would be proud of what you've accomplished, building something on your own merit without using the Carter name. That takes courage." Marcus reached across the table, covered her hand with his. The gesture felt too intimate, too familiar. "I always admired that about you, Noelle. Your determination to prove yourself." She pulled her hand back gently. "Marcus, why are you really here? You said you're overseeing a merger, but Lux Global has offices all over the world. Why personally handle this one?" He had the grace to look embarrassed. "Because I heard about Noah, about the broken engagement, and I thought..." He took a deep breath. "Noelle, I've been in love with you since we were teenagers. I left the country after your engagement to Noah because I couldn't stand watching you marry someone else. But when I heard it fell apart, I thought maybe the timing was finally right. Maybe I finally had a chance to tell you how I feel." "Marcus!" "I know it's sudden. I know you're probably not ready. But Noelle, I've waited years for you. I built my career, proved myself to my own family, became someone worthy of standing beside you, and now I'm here, asking you to give me a chance. Give us a chance." His eyes were earnest, pleading. "We could build something amazing together. Merge our families' companies, create an empire. Your brothers already respect me. Our families already love each other. It would be perfect." Noelle felt her heart sink. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of with Hajin, being seen as a strategic asset, a business opportunity wrapped in romantic words. "Is that what I am to you? A business merger, disguised as a relationship?" "What? No!" Marcus looked genuinely shocked. "Noelle, I love you. The business aspect is just a bonus. I want you, not your company. Though I won't lie and say building an empire together wouldn't be incredible." "I can't," Noelle said softly. "Marcus, I'm sorry. I care about you as a friend, but I can't give you what you're asking for." "Is it him?" Marcus's expression darkened. "Kim Ha-jin. I saw the way he looked at you today, the way you looked at him. Are you involved with him?" Noelle hesitated, and that hesitation was answer enough. Marcus sat back, processing this. "You're sleeping with your boss. Noelle, I'm married to him," she said quietly, the secret finally escaping. She was so tired of lying, of hiding. "We got married the day I was supposed to marry Noah. It started as an arrangement, but Marcus, it's become real. I'm falling in love with him. I think I might already be there." Marcus stared at her like she'd just announced she was moving to Mars. "You married Kim Ha-jin, the Korean Mafia boss, a man you barely know." He laughed, but it was bitter. "Does he even know who you really are? Does he know you're Noelle Carter, that your family could buy and sell his company 10 times over?" "Not yet," Noelle admitted. "I haven't told him." "So he married you thinking you're just some cleaner with mysterious knowledge?" "Noelle, when he finds out the truth, he's going to think you were using him, playing some kind of game. This is going to blow up in your face." "Maybe," Noelle said, standing, "but that's my risk to take. I'm sorry, Marcus. I wish I could give you what you want, but my heart belongs to someone else now." even if I don't fully trust him yet. Even if it's complicated and messy and probably going to end badly, I have to see it through. She left Marcus at the table, his expression a mixture of hurt and concern. As she walked to her car, her phone buzzed, a text from Ha-Jin. "Where are you? Security says you left the estate." "Having dinner with Marcus. I'll be home soon." The response came immediately. Dinner. With the man who just confessed feelings for you in his every gesture and word. Perfect. Noelle felt a spike of irritation. "Are you having me followed?" "I'm having you protected. There's a difference. Come home. We need to talk." The estate felt cold when Noelle arrived. She found Ha-Jin in the library again. But this time, he wasn't working. He was just sitting in the dark, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring at nothing. When she entered, he didn't look up. "How was dinner with your childhood friend who's in love with you?" His voice was flat, emotionless, which was somehow worse than anger. "How did you—" "I had dinner with my own sources, did some research on Marcus Chen, VP of Lux Global, family owns a cosmetics manufacturing empire in Taiwan, Harvard MBA, never married, left the country 5 years ago, right around the time you got engaged to Noah. The pieces aren't hard to put together, Noelle. He's been in love with you for years, and now he's back, making his move while your marriage to me is still secret. Convenient. It's not like that, isn't it?" Now Ha-Jin looked at her, and she saw something that made her chest ache. He looked defeated. "You won't tell me who you are. You won't trust me with your real background, but you'll have dinner with a man who knows everything about you, who could offer you everything I can't. Legitimacy, social acceptance, a partnership built on your real identity instead of lies and secrets." "I don't want Marcus," Noelle said firmly. "I want you. I told him that tonight. I told him I'm married to you, that I'm falling in love with you. I chose you, Ha-Jin. But you still won't trust me." He stood, moved to the window. "You chose me, but you won't let me fully in. You'll share my bed, my life, my home, but not your truth, not your real self. How is that choosing me, Noelle? How is that a real marriage?" "Because I'm terrified." The words burst out of her, raw and desperate. "I'm terrified that if you know who I really am, you'll see me differently. Noah taught me that lesson, and I can't go through that again. Not with you, not when I'm already in love with you." The confession hung in the air between them. Noelle's hands were shaking, tears streaming down her face. She'd said it, finally said it out loud. She loved him. And now he knew. What he did with that knowledge would determine everything. Ha-Jin turned slowly, his expression unreadable. "You love me." "Yes," Noelle whispered. "I love you. I didn't mean to. I tried not to. But I do. And I'm terrified of it. Terrified of giving you the power to destroy me." He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her with desperate intensity. Not gentle, not careful, raw and real and full of all the emotions they'd been holding back. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "I love you too," he said quietly. "I've been falling in love with you since you stood in that conference room and defended people you barely knew, since you showed up at a bar and shared your revenge plans with a stranger, since you walked down that aisle and chose me over everything safe and sensible in your life." His hands cupped her face, thumbs brushing away her tears. "And yes, I want to know who you really are. Not because I want to use you, but because I want to know everything about the woman I love. I want to meet your family, understand your past, know what shaped you into this incredible, stubborn, brilliant person. But I'll wait until you're ready, however long it takes." "What if I'm never ready?" Noelle asked, her voice breaking. "What if I'm too broken from Noah to ever fully trust anyone again? Then we'll work through it together." Ha-Jin kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. We'll build that trust day by day, moment by moment, until one day you wake up and realize you feel safe enough to tell me everything. I'm not going anywhere, Noelle. I married you. For better or worse, remember. This is the worse. We'll get through it and make it to the better. They held each other in the darkness, two damaged people trying to build something whole, something real. And for the first time since her world had exploded, Noelle felt hope. Maybe she could do this. Maybe she could learn to trust again. Maybe love was worth the risk. What she didn't know was that time was running out. Because Noah and his ex-mistress had just finalised their plan, and what they'd set in motion would force every secret into the light, whether Noelle was ready or not. The next 2 weeks were different, better. Hajin stopped pushing for answers, and Noelle started volunteering information, small pieces of herself, her childhood, her family dynamics. Not everything, not her full identity, but enough that the walls between them started, crumbling brick by brick. They spent their nights talking, laughing, making love with a tenderness that surprised them both. At work, they maintained professional distance, but everyone could see something had shifted. They looked at each other differently now, moved in each other's orbits like binary stars. Marcus kept his distance after their dinner, though Noelle occasionally caught him watching her with sad, resigned eyes. Yuna's sabotage continued, but Noelle's team had rallied around her, protecting her work, defending her authority. The adaptive foundation line was ahead of schedule and exceeding all expectations. Life felt almost normal, happy even, which should have been Noelle's first warning that something was about to go catastrophically wrong. It happened on a Tuesday. Noelle was leaving the office late, running final tests on the foundation formula. Her security detail was with her, two of Hijin's best men, always discreet, but always present. She was texting Hijin about dinner plans when the van appeared, black, unmarked, moving too fast. Her security detail reacted immediately, reaching for their weapons, positioning themselves between her and the threat. But they were outnumbered. 6 men poured out of the van, armed and efficient, professionals. The fight was brutal and brief. Her security team went down hard, not dead, Noelle would learn later, but unconscious and bleeding, and strong hands grabbed her, a cloth pressed over her mouth and nose, chemical smell, sharp and medicinal. She fought, kicking and clawing, trying to scream, but her vision was already blurring, her limbs going heavy. The last thing she heard before darkness claimed her was one of her kidnappers speaking into a phone. "We have her. Tell the client it's done." The secret was out, and soon Hajin would learn the truth, not from his wife's lips, but from the criminals holding her hostage. Noelle Carter, heiress, billionaire, the woman who'd been hiding in plain sight as a cleaner, afraid to trust the man she'd fallen in love with. But here's what I want to know from you. When Hajin discovers his wife is one of the richest women in America, will he think she was using him? Or will he fight heaven and hell to bring her home? Drop your predictions in the comments, and if you're desperate for part 2, where the Carter brothers meet the Mafia boss, where the rescue mission begins, where Yuna's conspiracy is finally exposed, and where Noelle and Hajin's love is tested like never before, make sure you're subscribed with that notification bell on. Part 2 is coming, and it's going to be explosive. See you there.